Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Roadside Live. I am here today with Michael Dinsio from Next Level Consulting. Most of you have probably caught the first time that we chatted back in January. If you haven't, I'll tell you in a second how to go back and watch that one. But Michael is with Next Level Consulting. It's a practice management organization, and he helps doctors nationwide get into ownership, also manage their business, establish a new one, maintain existing practice, prepare to sell, or the elusive start from scratch, opening it from the ground up. And that is the focus of our conversation today. So as I mentioned, if you missed our previous conversation about practice acquisitions, go back to Roadside's Marketing Media Hub, look under videos and look for the video, How to Buy a Dental Practice the Right Way. So let's jump in to our topic for today. Thanks so much for joining us again. We had so much fun last time, but let's talk about startups. Sometimes that's kind of a scary phrase for a doctor, is instead of buying a practice that's already got its legs under it, is starting from the ground up. So why? Why would a doctor choose a startup instead of an acquisition?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Angela. We love doing things with you guys. I love the program. I love the content, and I think your audience and followers do too. So thanks for doing this. It's super fun.
Thank you.
So why a startup? A startup is really cool. I was thinking about it this morning when I was getting out of bed and knowing that I was going to do this interview with you today. And I think the answer is because it's an opportunity to create something from scratch. Most doctors that talk to me about doing a startup, they just don't want to buy something that they feel could be, I don't know, used or worn, or it's not their vision. They're afraid that the team doesn't reflect them and their style. The patients might be different. The demographics might not be exactly what they thought it would be. So it's just an opportunity to mold clay, to paint your own Picasso, I guess. So I guess it's the purity of it. And I'll add to that. So that's what most people get attracted to. But then there's the fear of the cash flow and not having that. And I think we'll probably get into that later. So I'll pause. But I will say that there's not that many practices to buy right now. And that was what our last episode was about. And when there's a lack of demand in something, where do those people go? Well, they go to startups. And so my business at Next Level, I was really heavy acquisitions. Probably right out of COVID, I was super heavy acquisitions. But now my business has kind of shifted to heavy startups. And I don't think it's anything that I'm doing differently with marketing or how I promote myself. I think it's just because there's no inventory. And so people are getting fed up with where they're working, and they're saying, you know what? I'm not going to wait anymore for that unicorn practice. I'm going to go build it. So those are my two things about why someone would want to do a startup.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I know right when COVID hit, there was a lot of practices who had been considering selling who did. So there was a big influx of availability, but I have heard that it's slowed down a little. So I've gotten more and more calls from startups also for some of the same reasons that you mentioned. And sometimes as we'll say, the remodel of a practice, not physical remodel, but the structural remodel is just almost more work than starting from scratch. So they would rather just, like you said, have their vision. So those are great points. Love those. Thank you. So if I was a doctor who wanted to start from scratch, I wanted to build my own dream, what would be the first steps in doing a startup?
Yeah, so I get that question a lot, and I think, when people approach me to help them do the startup, I find them in different phases of it, and it's interesting because I find that they kind of fall into it, and they may have made some mistakes in the beginning, but we got some cleanup to do, or things that they had not thought about. And so we have to go take a couple steps backward to take 3 steps forward type of thing. So I love this question because the right way to start a startup is to really know your business and understand what your vision is going to be. And I know that it's such a corny thing to say, but literally we talk about this on my podcast, the Startup Uncensored podcast, and you have to know your vision so that you can drive that vision all the way through the process. Because if you don't, the contractor, the architect, the space planner, the equipment people, they're going to take you down a path that they think is the way it needs to go. And it's not wrong, but it might not be your vision. And so vision really is the first step, the business planning of it and vision. But then the key next step is demographics. I think that's like literally the first stage or the first step of the risk. You know, there's risk. There's risk in opening up a business. There's risk in doing an acquisition. But the first insurance policy, I guess, the first thing to knock down potential risks is demographics. Because if an area is heavy in competition, then you're going to have slow growth. Right. And someone that drives marketing like you guys do, someone could spend 20 grand and kill it, and someone could spend 100 grand and not kill it. And it's because of the competition. And so demographics to me is that first step. And then following, once you figure out your spot, then obviously getting that real estate person involved to try to find that spot within the demographics that you're looking.
Right. So, and what you said at the beginning is really knowing their vision. I guess my thought would be going along with that is properly communicating their vision. So I guess maybe practicing their communication, because I've, being in this field for a long time, we've seen that where doctors may know in their head what their uniqueness is going to be, what their mission, what their vision is going to be, but they kind of forget to communicate it to every single person along the way. You know, maybe they think that their interior designer, it's not important for them to know what their overall scope of the vision or the practice is, but that's not true. The more they can communicate it with everyone, I think the more successful getting everyone on the same page would be. So I would kind of add to that too, is just reminding them to communicate it. It sounds so easy, but sometimes doctors get, especially on a startup, there's so many things, so many balls in the air, and they assume that everyone knows what they are thinking. And so that doesn't happen.
You're 1,000% right. And the only way that you could communicate it is if you know it. Right. So if you don't know how to, if you don't know it, you can't communicate it. It's just one of those steps that just is so simple. I think most people do know the kind of practice that they want. They know that they don't want to be Medicaid, or they know maybe they do want to be Medicaid or spa. I mean, I'm saying Medicaid, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah. That two different types of businesses. And if you don't know that and what it feels like, the feeling that you want to give your patients, the look, the whole thing, there's no way your team that you're going to hire is going to deliver on what you're trying to do. There's no way, unless you communicate it. So you nailed it.
Absolutely. So other than not communicating properly, what would you say are some of the biggest pitfalls that doctors make when they do a startup?
Ooh, I love that question. Okay, so two things. Number one, budget. I think the banks today are lending as much as they're willing to lend. COVID, there was a crunch, or there was a restriction, I suppose, as I would call it, in the amount that they're lending. And so you have to get super intentional about where you're going to spend your money and how. And a lot of people don't know how to do that. It's a big thing that I help my clients do, is really going through everything from top to bottom, from window coverings all the way down to furniture, to the signage. You know, no one's talking about these little things that do add up, and you have to have a budget for every single piece that plays into it. Otherwise, you might spend too much in equipment. You know, I mean, I would say that one of the biggest pitfalls, and I hate to say it, is probably spending too much money on equipment. However, I would rather them spend money on equipment than construction. Yeah. So don't get me wrong when I say that, because equipment actually helps the practice drive revenue. But the construction costs are so expensive that it's restricting how much money we have, and so sometimes people get a little carried away with the equipment. So budgeting is number one, focusing on that and really having a game plan there. But number two really falls into your world, and that's marketing. So once you get through the project and everything looks like it's moving and construction's happening, then it's getting marketing going as soon as humanly possible. And that might be as simple as getting your brand done 90 days before so you can get your social going. We kind of had a chit chat about this before, but if you don't have your missiles ready to launch in marketing, as I say, get your missiles ready. But as I would say, as 60 days, 30 days before you open, you're really missing out. I mean, you're the expert, so why don't you take us where you want there? But I say, somewhere between 90 to 60 days before opening that you're ready to go.
Yeah, we actually recommend the same thing. We recommend that the website or landing page or whatever they're going to use for their starting point launches at least 60 days before the doors open, which means you need to backtrack your planning. If you're going to have a website launch, you need to backtrack a few months before that for construction, and then backtrack maybe even a couple more months for your branding and your logo and your planning and making sure that your brand is well established. So, we've had thankfully it happens rarely, but we've had the occasional office that's like, we're going to open in 2 weeks. What can you do for us? And I said, my time machine's broken, but I can help you, but I really wanted you 6 months ago. So yeah, I would say starting early enough is what I see. And also the thing that I've seen from startups, and jump in if I'm incorrect here, but the ones that have had the most success are the ones that plan in their construction loan or in their startup loan for the first 4 to 6 months of marketing, so that they have that budget and they're not panicking because the door's open and they don't have a full chairs yet and they're trying to market for it. So the ones that I've seen that are the most relaxed about their marketing and have it the most successful have already pre-planned that budget way back in the loan stage, and they're like, okay, so when I hit the 6 month mark, I'm out of loan marketing money, and by then my practice needs to be rolling so I can pay for this.
And the cash flow and the revenues are coming in. That's kind of why I put budget first on the pitfalls, because if you don't budget, you can get yourself into some really big trouble. And that is a beautiful point, because if you don't have two things, marketing, money, and if you don't have working capital the day you open, you're in bad shape. And if you don't manage that project budget, I've seen a lot of startups struggle right out of the gate. And the ones that thrive are the ones that had plenty of cash, working capital, and plenty of marketing money, because you're not going to get patients in the door without marketing money, period. Right. Yeah.
So that actually leads to kind of my final question is, financially, I mean, you're talking about taking out loans, but financially, coming off COVID, coming off the uncertainties, does it make sense to do a startup? Like, how can they make it work financially versus buying an acquisition, buying a practice? Like, how do they make it work?
Okay, it works. It works. Period. This is probably the clients that the people that go after acquisitions, or the doctors because they're so worried about the financial piece. So it's a great question, and I'm glad it's the bonus question for today because it really solidifies why you might want to do a startup. It works because of a few things. I always say it's like a tooth prep or a crown prep. Tooth prep. Am I even in the dental world? It's a crown prep. There's steps to it, and if you don't go through all the steps, you're gonna have some margins, right? And so the steps of doing a startup are very systematic. Your vision might be different, but going back to the financials, you're going to get a loan that has discounted payments. You're going to get a loan that has working capital built into it, cash, to pay your payments over time for the first 6 months. If you budget right, you're going to get a lease that has free rent built into it if you have a real estate person that knows what they're doing, or a consultant. You're going to have your job still, because that's a requirement of the loan, to keep the revenue coming in. Right. And then I guess lastly, you're going to have your own personal cash, because that's also a requirement. So you have these fail safes built in that you wouldn't normally have for an acquisition. So the system is different, or the structure is different, to where it gives you that launch pad that you need financially. I will go out on a limb and say when I was a banker at Bank of America, who does do the majority of the startup loans in the country, they taught me that a startup will do or make on average about $100,000 their first year. So that, to me, you can make it work. Is it as much as you made as an associate? Maybe not. But to make $100,000 your first year as a scratch business,
right,
that's pretty good. So, right. But also, we talked about budget in the construction piece of it. It's also budgeting your ongoing expenses as well, your wages, your well, of course, your loan and your rent and your supplies and your lab. It all matters. It all matters. And so, but if you do it right and you have help and you have a great team like you guys and us on your six rather, you're gonna be fine, and it financially makes sense.
Awesome. And I know who they can call if they're considering a startup, and you can walk them through the process, because I've talked to a lot of docs that are not quite ready to start their startup yet, and part of maybe their hesitation is it sounds like a lot of work and I'm not really sure the steps I take, and I don't know who a good consultant would be. So here's your good consultant, everybody. We'll put his contact information right here in our chat. If you're considering leaving your practice and starting from the ground up, this is your guy. And we always enjoy having you on our lives and chatting with you, and we really appreciate you being part of it today. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for the opportunity, Angela. You guys are great. Thanks for what you do for the industry.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you soon.
See you guys. Bye.